UFC 303 this Saturday in Vegas. Could it get any better? It sure can when you get in with my partners, DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of UFC. It is a banger of the card, and the light heavyweight championship is on the line in the main event. New to DraftKings? Check this out. New customers who bet just $5 get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. When you sign up, use the code Sonnen. DraftKings, the crown is yours. That's right. New customers can bet just $5 on anything and receive $150 in bonus bets instantly. From the much anticipated title fights to the exciting undercard bouts, DraftKings is giving customers a shot to get in on the action all night long. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. DraftKings is the one-stop shop for all things daily fantasy, where you got a shot to win cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. New customers, use my promo code Sonnen. Bet just $5 on any wager and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code Sonnen only at DraftKings Sportsbook. MVP and Ian Garry, in so many ways, this is the most compelling fight on the card. And in so many ways, it's the one with the most at stake. I don't know that there's a scenario for MVP. For example, if he loses to Garry, where he comes back, and it's not just a rankings issue. Like, a lot of times you go look at the rankings, I think that Gary's around 6. I know I'm close. And I think MVP's around 13. I know I'm close. Generally, if 13 loses to 6, it's not that big of a deal. Like, life goes on. But sometimes you have to work in other numbers to the formula. And when number 13 is 37 years old and number 6 is 26 years old, it changes. Like, even if what happens is what is supposed to happen, which is what the odds makers at DraftKings are saying going to happen. What the rankings committee that comes out every Tuesday at 9 a.m. has already stated will happen. Sometimes when it does, it can be more detrimental, and I just share for you, there's a lot at stake here. A very reasonable person could make a very reasonable argument that Ian Garry should be fighting for the world championship right now. Like, in many ways, if this guy named Belal Muhammad hadn't won 8 fights in a row and didn't have a history with Leon Edwards, and they already had a contest, and there was an eye poke. In many ways, if that guy, this Belal Muhammad just didn't exist, Garry would be the guy. Isn't he ranked number 6 or something like that? Isn't he 14-0 or 15-0, something like that? He's got the backstory in the gym and used to train with Leon. Like, everything is there for Garry to be your number 1 contender. Everything. It just turned out that everything, plus a little bit for Muhammad, was there in this specific snapshot in time. And Garry and MVP fight a lot alike. And they both have enjoyed an advantage. And that advantage is the opponents are scared of them. Every single opponent that you will see Garry fight, even before he had a big name, was timid. All of them. And Garry is very by the book. I mean, he's going to have his hands up and his chin's down, and he's going to be bouncing on his feet. He is never going to strike you once. If he can touch you once, he will touch you twice. If he can touch you twice, he'll finish with a kick, reset, and do it again. But he will never start a sequence without a feint first. And that is somewhat advanced. Like, the average fan isn't going to know what that means. If you're standing there with a guy, just go out and hit him if you can, right? Yeah, I agree. But you're not training to fight the average guy. You're trained to fight the best guys in the world, and you can't just reach out and hit them. Their eyes and their time, it's too good. They're going to slip and they're going to hit you back. It's going to be a thing. You've got to trick them first. You've got to do a feint. You got to lift this hand before you throw this hand. You got to flinch at them. You guys probably played a game of this begrudgingly when you were a kid. I know it was a thing on the school bus when I was growing up, where some jerk would and they say 2 for flinching, he'd punch you twice in the shoulder. It was just an annoying thing. But it's very real in professional fighting. You will flinch at the guy. You make him pause for just a second, and then you throw your punches. I bring that to you because Garry will do nothing until he does that feint first. And he can't. That will not change. Like, his body is trained. If you go and you watch him in practice and he's on the mitts with a coach, or he's on a heavy bag by himself, or he's shadow boxing, he will not let those hands go until he throws his feint first. The feint is the tell that he's coming, and he will never come until he tells you first. But he's so good at it that everybody reacts and everybody gets hit. There's a boxer named Tommy Hearns, and he used to do that with a jab. He would just feint a jab, He would just feint, the way he'd move his shoulder, the way he'd move his eyes. Every single person, Sugar Ray Leonard, Hagler, Duran, they all fell for it. All Tommy Hearns had to do was feint this. He could hit him with the other hand. He could hit him with that hand. It was great. It's a feint, fine. But the reason I'm spending so much time telling you about it, you'll have a guy like MVP fight and other people think that he's being cocky. Some people will even go as far as to call him disrespectful. Anderson Silva got billed at times the same way. Roy Jones Jr. at times got billed the same way. And the misunderstanding by the audience is all Anderson, Roy Jones Jr., or in this case, MVP. All that they're doing is trying to get a reaction from the opponent. They're not trying to clown him, which is a word that I hear. They're not trying to mock him. They're not trying to be bad sports. They're trying to get him to watch. Like the Ollie Shuffle. The Ollie Shuffle wasn't because it helped the 1 and the 2 come out. The Ollie Shuffle was done to make the opponent free, just for a second free. What is he doing? Boom, boom. Hit you right down the middle. Now, Ian Garry will do his extremely basic. So basic that many of you don't even know that it's happening. MVP will do his in a way that you will see it and sometimes misinterpret and think it's bad sportsmanship. Either way, to get the best of Garry, step number 1 is you got to stand up to him. You cannot be scared of him. You have to stand up to him. And we've had opponents at times do just that. Garry was so long and he was so good at what he did that he would change their mind. Not to mention Garry with his offense hurts you. You're not the same guy as you were a minute earlier. You're not the same guy 4 minutes into the fight as you started the fight when you fight Garry. Because all he does is punch and kick. There is no point where he clinches. There is no point where he takes you down and holds you. There's no point where he's looking for a key lock. All he's doing, regardless of power, is punching you over and over. And if he's not, he's kicking you. Garry will wear you down. You must stand up to him. Something tells me MVP will. Now, the other side of the coin for MVP, if you go look at the very few guys who have had success with MVP, it's very few, and I'm going to put Kevin Holland in that group. Kevin Holland was not made to look like a fool. He was made to look like a guy that you don't fool with. But Kevin Holland stood up to him. He did not care about range. He was not one of these guys that's got to be way out here because he knows he can't be hit because he's so scared. Kevin stepped right in there. And in some ways, that threw MVP off. If you ever saw Mike Perry in MVP fight, the one thing Perry did, it wasn't that Perry turned out to be a little better boxer than we thought he was. The number one thing Perry did is he stood up to him. He did not will. He didn't get out of range. He didn't fall for the setups. He didn't fall for the distractions. He went and fought him. My skills versus yours. Let's do this thing until somebody says stop. I bring that to you because I don't believe that Ian Garry is going to wilt to the distance and the ideas or to the intimidation of the setups that are done by MVP. I don't think. And I don't think that MVP is going to wilt. Like, Garry doesn't have 5 setups. He has 1. But it's so good he can do it to everybody. I'll bring Conor McGregor in just as a name that you know, but he's got this left hand. That's true. It is hard, and it is powerful, and it is long, and it is fast. But he only throws it 2 ways. That's it. There's 2 setups. And I only share that with you because it's very surprising to me that over time, those haven't been identified. Khabib, as great as he was with taking you down, did not take you down on the letters of the canvas that say UFC. He took you down 100% of the time when your back was up against the fence. So to stop the takedown, step number 1, don't put your back up against the fence. Easier said than done. I'm just sharing for you that while I know this, and even if it's new to you, they know it. MVP knows nothing's coming until the setup comes first. And if he can disrupt in that moment, right there in that moment, as soon as that setup, as soon as that feint comes, if MVP has something to disrupt the rhythm, the cross and the jab are never going to fire. And MVP doesn't have just 1 setup. He's got 7 and 8 and 9. Guys like Mike Perry didn't care about any of them. Guys like Kevin Holland didn't care about any of them. If Ian Garry fights the way I think he's going to fight, he's also not going to care. And now you've got a long, drawn-out battle that eventually comes down to skill and comes down to speed, comes down to technique. Always the most pleasing matches to watch. Who's going to win? Ian Garry, undefeated, possible number 1 contender, 25, 26-year-old, something along these lines, versus MVP, a KG veteran at 37. Hard fight, close fight. Possibly the most meaningful fight of the night. Ian Garry.